What would he do when a wild boar killed him? Once then sent him to a world where his family was starving. Chu Foam opened his eyes inside a dynasty that never existed in his history books. And before he could understand the miracle, his daughter was already crying for food. In his previous life, Chu Foam had been an outdoor survival streamer. He knew forests, traps, firewater beasts, weather, and the brutal math of staying alive. Before that, he had trained like a soldier and learned how calm men survive violent places. But one careless moment on a mountain ended everything. A wild boar struck him, the ground vanished under his feet, and his old life disappeared. When he woke again, he was no longer in the modern world. He had crossed into the Great Qin dynasty, a cold borderland drowning under war and famine. The body he occupied belonged to another man also named Chu Foam. That man had left behind a wife, a daughter, and a house that barely deserved the name. His wife was Zhao Shasha, a young woman worn thin by hunger and cold. His daughter was Meow Meow, only 5 years old, with cheeks hollow from starvation. Their only companion was a little white puppy named Benbin. The original Chu Foam had not died from blades poison or monsters. He had simply been starved, frozen, and forgotten by his own family. The Chu household favored the older brother Chu Long because Chu Long had a son. To them, a daughter was a burden, and a son was the only blood worth feeding. So Chu Foam's family received the worst house, the smallest share, and almost no food. The walls had cracks stuffed with straw. The windows were missing. The fence leaned like it was waiting for one more storm to finish it. When the new Chu Foam understood the memories in that body, his jaw tightened. He had been thrown into poverty, but he had not been thrown into helplessness. His wife was barely standing. His daughter was crying from hunger. 2 days had passed without a real meal. A man could curse fate in a warm room. Chu Foam did not have that luxury. He grabbed a bamboo basket, took a small hoe, and headed for Yulong Mountain. The villagers called that mountain cursed. An old hunter had once gone up there and returned only as a corpse. His organs had been removed, yet the body had not been eaten by animals. Since then, even starving villagers avoided the slopes. But fear does not fill a child's stomach. Chu Foam stepped into the snow because there was no other road left. Meow Meow secretly followed him. Benbin followed her. When Chu Foam noticed them, his first instinct was anger. Then he saw Meow Meow clutching her thin sleeves against the cold. In this world, even a simple chill could become a death sentence. He wanted to send her back. But the little girl's stubborn eyes told him she would only follow again. So he kept her close and moved carefully through the White Mountain. His old survival instincts returned faster than his memories settled. He recognized Shepherd's purse beneath the snow. He found black nightshade and dug it out before the frost could ruin it. The harvest was small, but small food was still food. Yet winter was coming, and winter did not care about effort. Meow Meow hugged his leg and whispered that she wanted meat. Chu Foam promised he would buy some. The lie tasted bitter the moment he spoke it. In Shulingtown, meat had become a rich man's luxury. War had raised every price. Refugees were already wandering near the roads. Enemy soldiers from Da might cross the border at any time. The world was not just poor, it was collapsing. Then Benbin barked with a sharp cry that sliced through the snow. Meow Meow screamed. Chu Foam ran toward them with the hoe gripped in both hands. A black wild boar stood ahead of them, glaring with tiny green eyes. It was not fully grown, but it was still strong enough to kill a child. Benbin trembled, yet the puppy stood in front of Meow Meow and barked. Chu Foam understood in that instant why even starving people had not eaten that dog. Benbin was family. The boar made Chu Foam's heart pound for another reason. A boar had killed him once before. Now another one stood between him and his daughter. But panic faded when his eyes caught the blood near its back leg. A rusty iron trap had clamped around the boar's limb. The wound had dried, and every movement sent pain through the animal. It was alone, thin, injured, and abandoned by its herd. A healthy boar would have forced Chu Foam to run. This one was different. It was danger, but it was also food. Meat for his wife. Fat for cooking oil. Bones for soup. A chance to stop watching Meow Meow starve. He told her to hide behind a tree with Benbin. If the boar charged, she had to keep the trunk between them. Chu Foam tied his rope into a lasso with steady hands. His body was weak, but his mind remembered 100 ways to trap desperate animals. He moved closer, one slow step at a time. At 15 meters, the boar stomped and breathed hard. Chu Foam stopped. Patience was not bravery. It was survival. The boar calmed. Chu Foam crept forward again. At 10 meters, the animal broke. It bolted despite this pain in its trapped leg. Chu Foam threw the lasso. The loop caught around its body. He sprinted to a tree and wrapped the rope around the trunk. No starving man could hold a boar with bare hands. A tree could, The boar thrashed so hard the rope burned against the bark. Chu Foam fought from behind the trunk, pulling, bracing, and tying the knot tight. Sweat slid down his face, though snow fell around him. He looked at his broken basket. He looked at the hoe. Then he thought of Zhao Sha Sha's hollow cheeks. He thought of Meow Meow asking for meat like it was a dream. The fear inside him turned cold. He charged. The basket slammed over the boar's head. The hoe came down again and again. The fight was uglier than he expected. The injured beast still kicked, twisted, and nearly bit his leg. But Chu Foam did not back away. A starving father can become more frightening than a cornered animal. When the boar finally collapsed, the snow around it had turned red. Meow Meow jumped in place, shouting that they had meat. Chu Foam could barely breathe, but he smiled anyway. For the first time since waking in this world, he had won something. He tied the carcass with rope and began dragging it downhill. Meow Meow grabbed the rope with her tiny hands. Benbin bit the boar's ear and pulled with all his little strength. Together they dragged survival itself through the snow. The journey home took hours. Their house stood at the edge of the village closest to the mountain. It was the worst location on ordinary days. That day it saved them. Nobody saw Chu Foam dragging an entire boar into the yard. Zhao Shasha froze when she saw it. Her eyes widened like she was afraid the meat would vanish if she blinked. Chu Foam told her to stop staring and help. She snapped back to herself and grabbed the other end. Her body was thin, but there was hidden strength in her arms. Chu Foam noticed it along with the brightness still living in her eyes. That night they waited until darkness before butchering the boar. Chu Foam borrowed the village chief's cleaver under the excuse of chopping firewood. In the Great Qin dynasty, iron tools were controlled because war devoured everything. Even knives were watched. Even a cleaver could have become evidence if the wrong person spoke. Still, hunger made people bold. By firelight, Chu Foam and Zhao Shasha cut the boar apart. Hooves, organs, head, skin, meat, and bones were sorted carefully. The fat mattered most. They rendered it into lard until the room smelled richer than a noble kitchen. Meow Meow watched with shining eyes and nearly drooled onto the floor. They fried tender meat with the wild vegetables from the mountain. The first bite silenced the room. It was not a royal feast. To them it tasted like a future. Chu Foam also kept the rusty iron trap from the boar's leg. In this poor world, even a broken piece of iron could change a family's fate. He was already imagining tools, arrows, and weapons. But before that thought could grow, voices came from outside. Chulong had smelled the meat. Their mother, Madame Wei, had come with him. Chu Foam knew from the original body's memories that these people never came with kindness. They came when something could be taken. Chulong sniffed the air like a dog and demanded to know where the meat was. Madame Wei said Chulong's wife needed food because she had just given birth to a son. Half the meat, she declared, should go to the main household. Chu Foam laughed without warmth. He asked where his own grain share had gone. He asked why his wife and daughter had been left like walking skeletons. Madame Wei's answer was colder than the snow outside. Meow. Meow was only a girl, so she did not matter to the Chu family. That was the moment Chu Foam understood this family could never be reasoned with. Madame Wei tried to push toward the house. Chu Foam slammed the cleaver into the ground before her feet. The blade bit deep into the frozen dirt. Chulong screamed that he would kill his own mother. Madame Wei slapped Chulong before the village could hear his shouting. That told Chu Foam everything. She was not afraid of his anger. She was afraid others might learn he had meat. She still believed everything in his house belonged to her. Chu Foam stood between them and the door. His voice stayed calm, but the cleaver did not move. He listed every insult they had fed him. The broken house, the stolen grain, the favoritism toward Chulong's son, the water given to Meow Meow while another child ate bread. He could forgive poverty. He could not forgive watching his daughter suffer. Chulong noticed the iron trap and a pig's foot still caught in it. Greed flashed across his face. Chu Foam told them the trap had only caught one leg and nothing else remained. They did not believe him. He did not care. When Chulong tried to force his way inside, Benbin bared his tiny teeth. Chu Foam raised the cleaver and told him to try. Chulong stopped. The old Chu Foam had swallowed every insult. This Chu Foam made people count the distance between their skin and his blade. Chulong finally begged for even a small share. Chu Foam looked at his warm cotton jacket. In winter, cotton was nearly as precious as silver. He told Chulong to trade the jacket for the pig's foot. Chulong wailed, but Madame Wei ripped it off him herself. She wanted pig's foot soup for her grandson. Chu Foam threw them the trotter and took the jacket. When they left, the house became quiet again. Zhao Shasha looked afraid because defying parents was dangerous in this era. Chu Foam understood, but regret never entered his eyes. He had protected his wife and daughter. That was enough. Zhao Shasha hung pork above the chimney to smoke it for the winter. Chu Foam did not love smoked meat without salt, but he understood her thinking. A hungry family cannot live only on one good meal. It needs planning. As the warmth spread through the room, a new idea formed in Chu Foam's mind. His survival skills were not decoration. In this world, they were his greatest weapon. If he could hunt, he could feed his family. If he could bring back enough meat, he could trade for grain. If he became useful, even the village might stop seeing him as useless. The next morning, heavy snow covered Yulong village. Chu Foam returned the cleaver to village chief Dudahai. Chulong had already spread lies before he arrived. He claimed Chu Foam had found meat disrespected his mother and shamed the family. The village troublemaker Wang Wei boasted that he would make Chu Foam kneel. But when Chu Foam entered with the blood-stained cleaver, the room went silent. His eyes were colder than the weather outside. Dudahai later thought they looked like the eyes of bandits. Chu Foam returned the cleaver and left without explaining himself. He had no time to argue with hungry men chasing rumors. He went straight back toward Yulong Mountain. This time he wore the cotton jacket under animal skin. He carried the hoe and the iron trap. All night he had studied the trap's tendon spring. It might break after one or two more uses, but the tendon could become a bowstring. A bow would change everything. On the mountain, fresh hoof prints appeared in the snow. Rock sheep had passed nearby. Chu Foam followed the trail while digging for wild vegetables along the way. The mountain was quiet in the wrong way. After a while, his instincts warned him that someone was following. He climbed a huge pine tree and waited. Soon village chief Dudahai rushed beneath the branches, searching in panic. Chu Foam dropped from above and stopped the hoe near the chief's neck. Dudahai nearly lost his soul from fright. He admitted he had followed Chu Foam because his own family was starving. The chief brought an illegal axe and an old bow with no string. In the Great Qin dynasty, commoners owning weapons could mean death. By handing them over, Dudahai placed his life in Chu Foam's hands. Chu Foam accepted the truth. The chief had not come to rob him. He had come because hunger had finally become stronger than fear. Rustling suddenly moved through the trees. Both men climbed up fast. A herd of rock sheep ran beneath them, too frightened to slow down. Behind them came a snow leopard. White fur, black spots, cold eyes, and a hunter's silence. Dudahai almost fell from the branch. Chu Foam watched carefully instead. The leopard was dangerous, but it was not reckless. It was chasing the weak, not challenging the strong. While they waited, Chu Foam cut branches with the axe. He carved crude wooden arrows and strung the old bow with deer tendon. His old training returned through his hands. Archery, climbing, patience, breath control, and battlefield calm. When the sheep circled back, Chu Foam looked for the smallest one. The adults were too heavy and too dangerous. One young lamb fell behind. Chu Foam drew the bow. The arrow flew through the cold air and pierced the lamb's neck. Dudahai stared as if he had witnessed magic. Chu Foam only smiled and said he had learned a little. They carried the lamb down quickly before the leopard returned. On the way, Dudahai finally revealed why Yulong Mountain was feared. Beyond it lay the enemy nation of Da. The slopes hid spies, criminals, deserters, and dangerous mountain people. The old hunter's missing organs had never been the work of beasts. That warning stayed in Chu Foam's mind long after they reached home. Chu Foam gave the chief the lamb brain, hooves, and organs. Dudahai accepted them like treasure. His son Duchang was sick, and the doctor had said meat might keep him alive. That was why the chief had risked illegal weapons on a cursed mountain. Chu Foam understood him better after that. Poverty could turn fear into courage. It could also expose who still had a heart. That night, Zhao Shasha cooked lamb organ soup. The broth turned white and rich, carrying the smell of survival through the house. Chulong appeared again with a rough flour bun trying to show off. He bragged that their mother had stolen Chu Foam's next grain share to make it. Meow. Meow looked at him and said her father brought meat home. Chu Foam laughed so hard the cold in his chest almost broke. When Zhao Shasha brought out lamb soup, Chulong's pride crumbled. His bun suddenly looked like mud. Dudahai arrived with 2 pounds of fine flour as thanks. Chulong called Chu Foam useless. The chief laughed in his face and walked past him. That laugh did more than any argument. It told the village that Chu Foam was no longer the man Chulong described. Chu Foam offered the chief soup. The chief tried to refuse, but the bowl was already full. Outside, Chulong's jealousy burned hotter than the stove. Chu Foam used the moment wisely. He asked Dudahai to gather villagers to repair his house. In return, he would feed them meat. Starving men nearly ran to his yard when they heard the offer. Even Wang Wei came, though shame kept his mouth sharp. When the villagers saw the pork and lamb, their eyes changed. Meat in winter was not just food. It was hope. Men packed mud into the walls. Others repaired the fence and built a woodshed. Women helped Zhao Shasha boil meat and make flatbread from the flour. In a few hours, work that would have taken months was nearly done. Chu Foam showed only part of the meat. Too much food in a famine could turn gratitude into danger. Just when the meal was ready, Madame Wei stormed into the yard. She shouted that Chu Foam gave food to outsiders while ignoring his own family. Du Dehai stepped in before Chu Foam had to speak. He reminded her that the Chu family was no noble clan. They were villagers like everyone else. Wang Wei surprised everyone by taking Chu Foam's side. He mocked Chu Long for hiding behind his mother while his younger brother risked death. The villagers laughed. Chu Long's face turned red, but he did not dare fight. Everyone ate hot soup and flatbread. Some cried quietly while chewing. Some saved half their bowl to bring home. Madame Wei tried to grab food and failed. Chu Foam gave her one choice: work and eat or make a trouble and leave. She shouted about being his mother. Chu Foam answered with every wrong she had done. She had taken his grain. She had let his daughter starve. She had given him a broken house and demanded gratitude. Finally, he said the words she feared most. If she continued, they would cut ties. She could have his farmland, but she would never take from his house again. Madame Wei went silent because his value had changed before her eyes. A useless son could be discarded. A hunter who fed the village could not. Chu Long accepted half a bowl of soup in exchange for work. Madame Wei left in humiliation. By evening, Chu Foam's home was warmer than it had ever been. Meow, Meow rolled on the heated bed and laughed. Zhao Sha hugged Chu Foam with a blush on her face. Peace almost settled. Then scratching sounded from the fence. Chu Foam opened the window and saw the snow leopard in his yard. It had followed the smell of blood and meat down from the mountain. The repaired walls had saved them. Before that day, the leopard might have walked straight into the house. Chu Foam took the axe from under the bed. Zhao Sha begged him to stay inside. He could not. Their winter food was in the woodshed. If the leopard learned the house was easy prey, it would return again and again. Chu Foam kicked open the door and roared. The leopard leaped onto the woodshed roof and growled down at him. It was starving, but fire still ruled every animal's blood. Chu Foam lit a pig-fat torch and stepped forward. The flames reflected in the leopard's eyes. It bolted over the fence and vanished toward the mountain. Zhao Sha clung to him, shaking. Chu Foam comforted her, but his mind stayed on the danger. Predators coming into the village meant the mountain was running out of food. He set the old iron trap on the woodshed roof with lamb meat as bait. If the leopard returned, he intended to turn danger into silver. Before dawn, Du Dehai shouted outside. The government had come early to collect grain. That should not have happened for another half-month. War was squeezing the people faster now. Chu Foam had meat but no grain. Du Dehai brought him half a sack from his own family supply. The gift carried more weight than words. At the village center, 2 armed officers waited with a cart. Chu Long immediately pointed at Chu Foam and shouted that he had no grain. The officers drew swords. Madame Wei watched coldly. But the villagers stood up for Chu Foam. They offered to chip in. They remembered the soup, the meat, the repaired walls, and the kindness. Madame Wei offered to pay if Chu Foam returned to the main household. Chu Foam knew what she wanted. Not her son. His hunting kills? He refused. Chu Long demanded his arrest. Du Dehai paid the tax before blood could spill. Then he warned Madame Wei and Chu Long before the entire village. Reporting your own people during wartime would not be forgiven again. If they repeated it, Yulong village would drive them out. That threat terrified them more than hunger. After the officers left, the villagers faced a worse truth. Grain collection would now happen every 2 weeks. Nobody's supplies would last. Wang Wei said what everyone was thinking. They should hunt with Chu Foam. Du Dehai resisted because he knew the mountain's danger, but hunger had already beaten caution. Chu Foam agreed only with strict rules. Everyone would follow orders. Nobody would wander alone. All kills would be shared. One reckless hunter could get everyone killed. The next group that climbed Yulong Mountain carried more illegal weapons than anyone admitted. Axes, sickles, old swords, and hidden blades appeared under winter coats. The village had always been poorer than it looked. It had also been more dangerous. They marched in formation with Chu Foam and Du Dehai at the front. Their target was the herd of rock sheep. At the rear, Wang Wei and Sun Quan spotted a wild rabbit. Greed whispered faster than discipline. They slipped away to catch it for themselves. Hours passed before Du Chong stumbled forward, pale with fear. Wang Wei and Sun Quan were gone. Du Dehai exploded with anger, but Chu Foam pulled him back. Blame would not find missing men. The snow was thick, the mountain wide, and daylight fading. Chu Foam ordered Du Chong to lead the rest back. Too many tired villagers would only create more victims. He and Du Dehai followed the footprints alone. The trail grew shallow as snow filled it. Beside the human prints, Chu Foam found paw marks. Snow leopard. He gave the search half an hour more. At a small ridge, he climbed a pine tree and scanned the white world below. Red spots appeared southeast, leading deeper into the mountains. Blood. The missing men were injured and moving away from safety. Chu Foam chose to continue because Wang Wei and Sun Quan were foolish, not evil. Soon they heard a low growl. The snow leopard fled through the trees. Then 3 armored men appeared. Their curved swords, boots, and strange speech made Du Dehai flatten himself in terror. They were dust soldiers. Wang Wei and Sun Quan were tied back to back in the snow. Their wounds were not from claws. Men had done that to them. Du Dehai wanted to run and report to the authorities. Chu Foam saw the prisoners and counted the enemy. 3 soldiers, ancient weapons. Snow trees' surprise and fear. In his past life, he had not only streamed survival, he had trained in combat. He told Du Dehai there was a chance if they moved perfectly. The chief showed himself and ran. 2 Day soldiers chased him. 1 stayed behind. Chu Foam drew his crude bow and shot the guard in the shoulder. The wooden arrow lacked killing power, but surprise did enough. Chu Foam charged with the axe. The Day soldier swung a heavy blade. Chu Foam sidestepped and buried the axe into him. The fight ended in 1 breath. On real battlefields, that was often all it took. He told Wang Wei and Sun Quan not to speak. Then he climbed a tree and waited. The other 2 soldiers returned. Chu Foam aimed for the neck this time. 1 arrow struck true. The second soldier collapsed into the snow, clutching his throat. Chu Foam cut the prisoners free. Du Dehai appeared behind the last soldier. Surrounded the final Da soldier, dropped his sword, and surrendered. While they were still on the mountain, disaster was spreading below. Chulong had reported the hunting group to the government. Vice Magistrate Liao Shang came with officers ready to arrest villagers for entering forbidden land. He intended to send young men to the front lines. War needed bodies, and peasants were the easiest bodies to take. The women cried that their families would starve. Chulong stood silent beside Madame Wei. He had delivered his own village into danger. Just as the officers began dragging men away, Chu Foam's voice rang from the slope. He said they had not gone hunting. They had gone to catch spies. He entered the torchlight with Du Dehai beside him. Wang Wei could barely move. Sun Quan was wounded. A captured soldier stumbled behind them on a rope. In Chu Foam's other hand hung 2 severed heads wearing Da caps. He threw them before the official. The village fell silent. The government men turned pale. A lie could be punished. A Day prisoner could not be ignored. The next morning, Chu Foam stood in the government office. Vice Magistrate Liao treated him with a smile instead of suspicion. For killing enemy soldiers and capturing one alive, Chu Foam received an appointment. He became the mountain patrol guard of Yulong Mountain. It was not a grand official rank. It came with little pay, but it gave him 2 priceless things. He could hunt legally. He no longer had to pay grain tax. When he returned to the village, Madame Wei tried to welcome him back with a fake smile. She promised his full grain share and comfort in the main house. Chu Foam asked if the Chu family was worth returning to. Then he walked away. Du Dehai handled the rest under village law. Chulong and Madame Wei had nearly sold the whole village to the authorities. They were exiled from Yulong village. If they returned within 10 miles, they would be beaten to death. Chu Foam felt little. Mercy had already been shown by letting them live. At home, Zhao Sha ran into his arms and cried. Meow tried not to cry because he told her brave girls could swallow tears. Her puffy face made him laugh. Zhao Sha cooked rice with pork lard cracklings and wild scallions. It was simple, greasy, warm, and perfect. Chu Foam lay on the heated bed and understood that his family had crossed one storm. Another snapped shut on the roof. The iron trap had been triggered. He rushed out with the axe. The bait was gone, but the trap had caught nothing. Leopard prints marked the snow. The clever animal had stolen the meat and escaped. Chu Foam muttered that it was lucky, but deep down he knew it was more than luck. The next day he went to market with pork, lamb, and hides. A cart driver named Xiao Yuan stared at the load on his shoulders. Luck could not explain that much meat. At Sholing Town, Chu Foam saw merchants, restaurants, and brothels still busy despite the war. Outside town, villagers starved to pay taxes. Inside town, silver still moved like nothing was wrong. The owner of Spring Wind Restaurant bought all the meat. His name was Boss Luan Liang. He explained that slaughterhouses had dried up because supplies were going to the front. Restaurants would buy anything fresh. Chu Foam earned serious copper for a poor villager. Boss Luan then asked for oil toads and crayfish for a rich man's feast. He promised to buy as many as Chu Foam could bring. Chu Foam's eyes sharpened. If Yulong Mountain had clean streams, it had money hiding under stones. He bought fine rice, small candies for Meow, and makeup powder for Zhao Sha. Half the money vanished before he knew it. One successful hunt was not enough to build a life. When he returned, Du Dehai warned him that his father was causing trouble. Chu Tian had appeared after ignoring the family for years. He grabbed Meow and threatened to jump into the river with her. The threat was not grief, it was blackmail. Chu Foam's rage turned his hand cold around the axe. He almost killed his own father in front of the village. Zhao Shasha stepped between them with trembling eyes. That stopped him. In this dynasty, killing a father meant execution no matter the reason. Sun Quan and Wang Wei handled what Chu Foam could not. They beat Chu Tian and warned him to stay away. For the first time, Chu Foam realized he no longer stood alone. That night he shared fine rice with his family. He also brought food to Du Dahai's house as thanks. There, the chief showed him an old sheepskin map of Yulong Mountain. The village ancestors had once guarded the border against Day spies. That explained the hidden weapons in every household. The map showed paths, peaks, and a stream feeding Tan village. Chu Foam immediately thought of oil toads and crayfish. Du Dahai warned him that a dense forest stood in the way. Worse, a killer bear lived there. Chu Foam nodded as if he accepted the warning. But Du Chong's eyes lit up when he heard the price. A few days later, Chu Foam headed out with rice balls and the sheepskin map. Zhao Shasha packed all the food for him and kept none for herself. He kissed her before leaving. She blushed so hard the cold could not hide it. At the village entrance, Du Chong, Wang Wei, and Sun Quan were waiting. They had guessed his plan. They wanted to help catch toads and crayfish for a share. Chu Foam agreed because 4 pairs of hands could gather faster than one. But he warned them again. His orders were not suggestions. They crossed the dense forest in bitter cold. When Du Chong joked that bears should be hibernating, Chu Foam stopped. Massive fresh footprints marked the snow. The bear was awake. The forest became silent around them. Chu Foam chose a western route to avoid the tracks. They reached the stream without meeting the monster. Oil toads hid sluggishly in frozen dirt near the banks. Crayfish tucked themselves beneath stones in the clean running water. The baskets filled slowly but steadily. For poor men, every small creature looked like coins. On the way back, they relaxed too early. A massive brown bear stood 30 meters ahead. One ear was torn. One eye was blind. The remaining eye looked almost amused. Chu Foam knew this was the killer Du Dahai feared. He ordered everyone to stand tall and look large. They shouted and moved forward. The bear did not retreat. It came toward them instead. For one shameful second, Chu Foam thought about who could run fastest. Wang Wei was still injured. The bear would only need one body. Then Wang Wei stepped forward and said he would hold it back. He told the others not to look back if the bear charged. That courage struck Chu Foam harder than fear. A man willing to die for others could not be abandoned. The bear charged. Death thundered through the snow. Suddenly, the snow leopard appeared behind it. The leopard leaped onto the bear's back and bit down. The bear roared so loudly the mountain seemed to shake. Chu Foam shouted for the others to run. They dragged Wang Wei and fled until darkness swallowed the trail. At the foot of the mountain, all 4 men laughed like people who had escaped a grave. But that night, Chu Foam could not sleep. Wild animals did not risk their lives to save humans. Before dawn, he opened the door and found the leopard near his fence. Blood had frozen across its torn belly and back. It carried something in its mouth. A tiny snow leopard cub tumbled into the snow. The mother looked at Chu Foam once, then disappeared. Chu Foam understood the truth. The bear had likely killed her other cubs. She had attacked it for revenge, and that revenge had saved his group. Now she was too injured to raise her last child. She brought it to the human who had once left meat in his yard. Xiao Shasha made rice soup for the cub. Meow Meow later named it Hua Hua. The cub opened its eyes and followed Chu Foam as if he were its father. Soon after, the mother leopard returned once more. She dragged a small roe deer to Chu Foam's house and vanished again. The gift left him silent. Maybe the old people were right about spirit animals on Yulong Mountain. As official patrol guard, Chu Foam butchered the deer openly. He no longer had to hide every piece of meat. Du Dahai asked whether villagers could buy his extra meat at a small discount. Chu Foam agreed immediately. Selling directly saved him a trip to town. The villagers could resell some meat for profit and buy grain for taxes. His family gained protection through goodwill. The village gained a way to survive. Word spread beyond Yulong village. People heard that the once useless Chu Foam was feeding his neighbors. That rumor reached Zhao Shasha's hometown. Her grandmother and father, who had sold her for 2 bags of rough rice, suddenly remembered she existed. They came demanding grain. Zhao Shasha refused them before Chu Foam arrived. She said she was no longer theirs to sell beat or shame. Her father tried to strike her with a shoe. Villagers stepped in, but family matters were dangerous ground. Her grandmother began wailing to turn public sympathy. Then Chu Foam arrived with an axe. He kicked Zhao Shasha's father in the face and broke his arrogance with blood. He reminded them that they had never raised her with love. They had only used her solder and returned when she became useful. He raised the axe, but Zhao Shasha's soft voice stopped him. He could frighten her enemies. He would not destroy her heart by killing her family in front of her. Vice Magistrate Liao arrived by chance. Zhao Shasha's father tried to complain. Liu calmly explained that filing a complaint required punishment first. The man lost his courage immediately. Liao then revealed the real reason for his visit. The daughter of the wealthy Tian family had been kidnapped during a birthday banquet. The kidnappers fled into Yulong Mountain. Liao needed Chu Foam to guide a search. The missing girl's brother Tian Huang would go with him. Tian Huang was arrogant, proud, and trained for military exams. He looked down on Chu Foam the moment they met. When he saw Chu Foam's bow, he barked about illegal weapons. Chu Foam told him to report it and find another guide. Tian Huang swallowed his pride because his sister's life was at stake. They entered the mountain through the dense forest. Tian Huang tired quickly, though pride kept him silent. Chu Foam followed signs no ordinary villager could read. Blood on snow told him the wound was fresh. Scattered footprints told him there had been a fight. The trail led north toward the second peak. That meant colder slopes, deeper danger, and possible day routes. Tian Huang's suspicion grew as he watched Chu Foam read the land. Chu Foam claimed he had grown up in the mountains. The lie was simple enough to hold. They climbed until the wind became knife cold. Bandit signs appeared. Fire remains trampled, snow-broken branches, and dragged marks. Chu Foam built a picture in his mind. The kidnappers were not random thieves. They had enough supplies to camp enough men to fight, and enough confidence to hide near the border. Eventually, Chu Foam and Tian Huang reached a plateau. A snow shelter stood there, guarded by rough men. Among them was Xiao Yutian, a vice chief of the Lotus Society. Tianxin was alive but bound and helpless. Tian Huang wanted to rush in. Chu Foam stopped him because rushing meant dying. He studied the camp, the wind, the snow, the exits, and the sounds beyond the trees. Wolves were nearby. So was the killer bear. Chu Foam shaped a plan around everything that wanted blood. He did not need to defeat the bandits alone. He needed the mountain to defeat them. Tian Huang did not understand until the chaos began. Wolves hit the camp from the shadows. Bandits screamed as they were dragged into the snow. They swung wildly, breaking their own formation. Xiao Yutian raised what looked like a strange stick. Smoke burst. Thunder cracked. Gunpowder stung the air. Chu Foam realized it was a primitive fire lance. In this world, that weapon was more dangerous than silver swords or rank. Xiao Yutian wounded a wolf, but the pack only grew more savage. The one-eared bear arrived next. Its presence scattered both wolves and men. Tian Huang tried to rescue his sister and stepped into the bear's path. The monster bit off his arm like tearing cloth. Then it smashed into the shelter and butchered the bandits. Xiao Yutian died before his fire lance could save him. When the bear turned toward Chu Foam, the world narrowed to its single cruel eye. He picked up Tian Huang's fallen sword and faced it. Running was impossible. Begging meant nothing. Then the mother snow leopard roared from behind. She leaped onto the plateau and drew the bear's rage away. Old enemies disappeared into the blizzard. Chu Foam stood alive only because a wounded animal had chosen revenge again. Tian Huang begged for help. Even then he threatened reward and destruction in the same breath. He warned that his family would ruin Chu Foam if he abandoned him. That was his last mistake. Chu Foam hated one thing above all in this world: threats against his family. Tian Huang had already threatened Zhao Shasha and Miao Miao on the mountain. Chu Foam raised the sword. Tian Huang died without understanding that poor men could also make final decisions. Chu Foam spared Tianxin because she had not threatened him. He moved the fire closer so she would not freeze. Then he took Xiao Yutian's fire lance and black bundle of cartridges. Paper cartridges, powder pellets, ramrod, and fire striker. Primitive, unreliable, and powerful enough to change battles. Chu Foam hid the weapon under his coat and rushed home before dawn. Zhao Shasha opened the door and saw him covered in blood. He handed her the black bundle and told her to hide it where nobody would ever find it. If anyone discovered it, their entire family could die. She nodded without asking questions. That trust steadied him more than any medicine. Chu Foam then went to the government office with the story he needed Liao to believe. Tian Huang had died fighting bandits. Wolves and the bear had finished the rest. Chu Foam had barely escaped to report. Liao panicked at first because the Tian family was powerful. Then Chu Foam pointed out the chance for official credit. A wiped-out bandit camp could become a victory. Liao sent officers up the mountain. They found corpses, blood wolves, bandits, and one surviving Tianxin. Everyone rushed to claim glory. Chu Foam quietly dragged 3 dead wolves home. The village stared as if he had brought down demons. He never explained that wolves, bandits, and the bear had killed each other, letting people believe in his strength was safer. At home, Benbin and Hua Hua greeted him. Benbin was growing into a powerful Tang hound. Hua Hua followed like a shadow. Zhao Shasha helped process the damaged wolf hides. Chu Foam said he would avoid the deep mountain for a while. The new year was coming and they had enough supplies to breathe. But peace never lasted long around Yulong Mountain. In town, old Master Tian mourned his grandson and looked at Tian Xin with cold resentment. He demanded an investigation. Detective Lu Qi took the case. Others believed the explanation was simple. Bandits kidnapped the girl, Tian Huang chased them, and animals killed everyone. Lu Qi noticed the one question that refused to die. If Tian Huang was a trained fighter and died there, why had the patrol guard survived? That suspicion began moving toward Chu Foam. Back in the village, Chu Foam's house finally held real supplies. Meat, grains, salt, oil, and seasonings filled the corners like quiet miracles. Zhao Shasha counted them with a smile she could not hide. Meow Meow dreamed about full bowls. Chu Foam studied the hidden fire lance when he finally had time. The weapon was crude, hand-welded, short-ranged, and slow to reload. Yet for hunting birds at close range, it was perfect. That night Benbin barked wildly. Two shadows fled from the yard. Chu Foam hurled his axe and struck the slower thief in the back. Torchlight revealed the faces. His father Chu Tian and his brother Chu Long were stealing meat. Chu Long had survived only because winter clothes softened the axe. They begged him not to report them because they were family. Chu Foam felt nothing. Today they stole meat. Tomorrow they might kill. Vice Magistrate Liao arrived with Tian family servants and detectives. Perfect timing became punishment. Stealing from the mountain patrol guard earned Chu Tian and Chu Long 50 strikes. Officers dragged them away while they screamed. Chu Foam did not speak for them. The Tian family servants gave him 30 pounds of fine rice for saving their young lady. For a powerful family, that gratitude felt embarrassingly small. Detective Lu Qi questioned him about Tian Huang's death. Chu Foam retold the prepared story with just enough fear and confusion. Lu Qi watched for cracks. Chu Foam gave him none. Still, the detective warned him not to leave the area. After the officials left, another visitor arrived. Zhao Shasha's uncle came begging for grain on behalf of her grandmother and father. Chu Foam let Zhao Shasha decide. She refused without shaking. If they wanted grain, they could bring money or goods to trade. Nobody would take from her family for free again. That refusal showed Chu Foam something beautiful. The woman who once lowered her head had learned to stand. For several days, life settled into careful comfort. Chu Foam avoided the deep mountain. He kept accounts, checked traps, repaired tools, and watched the animals grow. Meow Meow could no longer outrun Benbin or Hua Hua. Zhao Shasha counted supplies like counting blessings. Chu Foam finally tested the fire lance on the outer slopes. He climbed a tree loaded powder, waited for wild chickens, and fired once. One bird dropped from the branch. The weapon worked. He also found 10 wild chicken eggs in nests high among the pines. If they hatched, his family might raise its own flock. That meant eggs, meat, and money without risking the mountain every time. As he prepared to go home, wolf howls drew closer. 4 people ran through the snow ahead. Behind them moved 8 wounded wolves. The woman in pale yellow was Tian Xin. She had returned to the mountain with rich friends for entertainment. Chu Foam could hardly believe the stupidity. Her brother had just died there. Detectives were still investigating. Yet she had come back to play at hunting. Chu Foam killed 1 wolf with a thrown axe and scared the rest away. Tianxin thanked him. One spoiled young man mocked him as a mere patrol guard. Chu Foam stared at him until the boy's confidence drained away. Since killing Tian Huang, a colder part of him had awakened. Tianxin silenced her friend and Chu Foam walked away. He wanted nothing from people who treated deadly mountains like gardens. On the way down, an arrow hissed past his head. Chu Foam dropped flat by instinct. A scarred man stepped out, pretending it had been an accident. 4 more men appeared behind him. Their eyes were on Chu Foam's basket. They had watched him sell valuable goods and decided to rob him. Chu Foam smiled and opened the basket. When the scarred man leaned close, the axe flashed. His head fell into the basket. Chu Foam killed the second man before the others understood the fight had begun. The remaining 3 ran screaming. Tian Xin and her friends had followed him and witnessed everything. Their fear became useful testimony. Chu Foam reported the ambush to Liao as a bandit attack possibly tied to the Lotus Society. Witnesses confirmed his self-defense. He returned home with the chicken eggs and another wolf. Meow Meow was more excited about eggs than silver. Chu Foam built a warm place near the heated bed to hatch them. He told her the first egg from their future chickens would belong to her. Her cheer made the whole house brighter. For a moment, Chu Foam believed life might truly become good. That peace broke before dawn. A mob from Ta'an village surrounded his house with weapons. Their chief Gu Yong was the father of the scarred robber Chu Foam killed. He claimed his son had been innocent and demanded justice. Vice Magistrate Liao stood nearby, trying to keep the mob from rushing in. Zhao Shasha grabbed Chu Foam's arm. Meow Meow clutched his sleeve. Ben Bin barked at the door and Hua Hua bristled in the shadows. Even the animals refused to let him stand alone. Then torches lit behind the Ta'an crowd. Du Dihai arrived with every armed man of Yulong village. He did not ask permission to defend his people. He stepped forward and called Guyong shameless to his face. He exposed the scarred man as a local tyrant who had robbed and bullied for years. The man had entered Yulong Mountain and attacked the official patrol guard. That made his death his own fault. Wang Wei pushed to the front and declared that anyone taking Chu Foam would cross his body first. The villagers remembered what Chu Foam had done. He had fed them. He had helped them earn grain tax money. Since he arrived, nobody in Yulong village had died of hunger. Gratitude turned into a wall of bodies. A rock flew. Another came back. Wang Wei roared that Ta'an village had attacked them first. The brawl erupted. Hoes, sticks, sickles, and fists swung in the torchlight. Liu shouted for order, but village pride drowned his authority. Chu Foam took up his axe and stepped out. He could not watch others fight for him while he hid. Then marching sounded from the distance. Detective Lu Qi appeared with over 100 officers and soldiers. They had come to hunt Lotus Society cultists hiding in Yulong Mountain. The sight froze both villages mid-swing. Lu Qi announced that only the patrol guard had legal authority on Yulong Mountain. Anyone else entering could be treated as a rebel. If the patrol guard killed them there, that was their own bad luck. The matter was closed. Chu Foam used that ruling like a blade. He asked Liao what kind of man attacked a government patrol guard on forbidden mountain land. If Guyong's son had ties to the Lotus Society, anyone protecting him could be dragged down. Liao understood the danger immediately. He abandoned Guyong with a polite bow. Guyong lost his official support in a single breath. Surrounded by Yulong villagers, he finally backed down. Du Dehai told him to take his complaint to heaven if he wanted. After the Ta'an mob left, Du Dehai exhaled like an old man carrying new weight. He had never challenged outsiders so openly before. But a chief who lets his people be bullied is not a chief. Wang Wei and Sun Can promised Chu Foam they would answer his call any time. They had proven it with bruises and blood. Among the wounded was Widow Li's 14-year-old son, Hu Zi. The boy had fought bravely despite being thin and young. His arm carried a nasty gash from the brawl. Widow Li wanted him to learn hunting someday so he would not live as a starving farmer. Hu Zi asked Chu Foam to take him once his wound healed. Chu Foam agreed. He saw courage in the boy, and courage deserved guidance. He invited Du Dehai, Wang Wei, and Sun Can to breakfast. The meal was simple millet porridge and rough flour buns. But pickled vegetables made everyone's eyes brighten. Salt was expensive and preserved food tasted like wealth. Over breakfast, Du Dehai finally asked the question he had been holding. The scarred robber had attacked first, but did Chu Foam truly need to kill him? Could he not have scared the man away? Chu Foam asked why he should have spared him. Du Dehai spoke carefully. Zhao Shasha and Miao Miao would go to town someday. Chu Foam could not watch them every moment. Making powerful enemies might put them in danger. The warning struck deeper than Chu Foam expected. In his past life, such restraint made sense under real laws. But Yulong Village did not live under safe laws. Out here, mercy could become an invitation. A robber spared today might return tomorrow with friends. He might burn the house, steal the meat, or strike when Chu Foam was away. In that moment on the mountain, Chu Foam could not gamble with his family's lives. Wang Wei and Sun Can stopped chewing. They had felt the same truth but never shaped it into words. Du Dehai stroked his beard and listened without arguing. The room settled into heavy silence. Then Widow Li burst in with tears streaming down her face. Something was wrong with Hu Zi. The boy had collapsed. His face was white, his body shaking, and his wound was worse than anyone thought. Chu Foam ran, and the quiet morning became another battlefield. Hu Zi lay on the bed like a candle about to go out. His lips had lost color. Sweat shone on his forehead despite the cold room. Widow Li knelt beside him, calling his name again and again. The gash on his arm was swollen near the edges. Chu Foam's heart sank. Those farm tools from the brawl had been rusty. In his old world, a wound like that meant infection could already be spreading. In this era, a single infected cut could kill faster than a wolf. He feared tetanus most. The thought alone made his back go cold. Yulong Village had no modern medicine, no proper disinfectant, no vaccine, no clean hospital bed waiting behind the next door. The village doctor Zhang Xian arrived almost at the same time. He checked Hu Zi quickly and ordered more blankets and a hotter fire. Chu Foam stopped him at once. Adding heat would not solve the problem. Zhang Xian glared at him. To the doctor, Chu Foam was a hunter, not a healer. The room tightened around them. Widow Li looked from one man to the other, terrified that pride would cost her son's life. Du Dehai stepped between them before the argument could explode. Zhang Xian surprised everyone by controlling his anger. He told Chu Foam to speak. If Chu Foam had an idea, the doctor would assist. That single sentence changed the room. It meant Huzi still had a chance. Chu Foam knelt beside the boy and studied every sign. He checked the wound first. Redness, swelling heat, and a smell that should not have been there. He asked when Huzi had last been conscious. He asked whether the boy had eaten. He asked whether his jaw had stiffened or his muscles had cramped. Widow Lee answered through sobs. Huzi had laughed after the fight. He had eaten a little. Then his body suddenly shook and he collapsed. Chu Foam's face did not change, but his mind moved fast. It might be severe infection. It might be fever from blood loss and cold. It might be the beginning of something worse. He could not pretend certainty, but doing nothing would kill the boy for sure. Chu Foam ordered clean water boiled immediately. He asked for the sharpest knife Jiang Xian had. He told Widow Li to bring clean cloth salt and strong liquor if anyone had any. Every villager in this doorway scattered to search. Nobody asked why. They had seen Chu Foam survive beasts, soldiers, officials, and bandits. If he said move, they moved. Jiang Xian watched him with narrowed eyes. Chu Foam explained that dirty flesh had to be cleaned before the poison spread deeper. Heat alone would only make the boy sweat while the wound rotted. The doctor's pride fought his reason. Reason 1. He handed over his knife. Chu Foam burned the blade in the fire and washed it with liquor. Widow Li cried harder when she saw the preparation. Chu Foam told her the truth gently. It would hurt, but leaving the wound untouched would hurt less for only a short time before death came. Du Dehai held Huzi's shoulders. Wang Wei and Sun Quan held his legs. Jiang Xian steadied the wounded arm. Chu Foam cut away the filthy bandage. The smell made several villagers step back. He cleaned the gash as carefully as the age allowed. Blood and pus mixed into the cloth. Huzi groaned but did not wake. Widow Li bit her hand to keep from screaming. Chu Foam worked with the focus he once used on battlefields and survival accidents. Every movement had to be firm. Every second wasted could let fever climb higher. Jiang Xian began helping without being told. He passed cloth water and herbs from his medicine bag. The old doctor knew plants even if he did not know modern infection. Chu Foam respected that. Survival in this world would not come from pride. It would come from using every piece of knowledge available. When the wound was finally cleaned, Chu Foam wrapped it loosely with boiled cloth. He told them not to bury the boy under too many blankets. Keep him warm, yes. Cook him alive, no. Jiang Xian repeated the instructions so nobody could argue. Widow Li looked at both men like they were holding her entire world between them. Huzi's breathing remained weak. Yet it was steadier than before. That small change felt larger than any hunt. Outside, the villagers waited in silence. The same people who had fought for Chu Foam now watched him fight for a child. This battle had no bear, no sword, and no government seal. But the stakes were just as real. A village can survive hunger for a while. It cannot survive if every wound becomes a funeral. Chu Foam stepped outside and washed his hands in snow until his fingers went numb. Du Dehai followed him. The chief's face was heavy with worry and something like awe. He asked if Huzi would live. Chu Foam did not lie. He said the boy had a chance, but the night would decide much. Du Dehai nodded slowly. In that nod was the burden of an entire village. Their enemies were no longer only wolves, taxes, or cruel relatives. Disease had joined the list. Cold had joined it. Ignorance had joined it. Chu Foam looked across the snow-covered roofs of Yulong village. Smoke rose from patched chimneys. Children coughed behind thin walls. Men sharpened illegal tools because the law could not protect them. Women counted grain and pretended the numbers were less frightening than they were. This village was not rich. It was not safe. It was barely holding together. But it had begun to hold together around him. That realization was heavier than any boar carcass he had dragged home. Chu Foam had only wanted to feed Jiao Sha Sha and Meow Meow. He had only wanted warm walls-full bowls and one quiet winter. Yet every choice pulled more people into his shadow. Du Dehai relied on him. Wang Wei trusted him. Sun Quan followed him. Widow Li begged him to save her son. Even the government had started using him when the mountain turned dangerous. He had become useful, and usefulness in this world was never gentle. It brought food. It brought enemies. It brought suspicion. It brought people to his door before dawn. Back home, Jiao Sha Sha waited with a lamp burning. Meow Meow was asleep beside Ben Ben and Hua Hua. The dog twitched in a dream. The snow leopard cub curled near the warmth like a small piece of living moonlight. Jiao Sha Sha saw the blood on Chu Foam's sleeves and did not panic. She had learned that fear could wait until after action. He told her Huzi might survive if the fever broke. She quietly warmed water for him. No grand words passed between them. They did not need grand words. Her hand on his wrist told him he had returned to the reason he kept fighting. Chu Foam sat beside the bed and watched his daughter sleep. Meow. Meow's face had gained a little roundness since the first starving day. Her breathing was soft and steady. That sound was worth every risk he had taken. The great Qin dynasty had given him cold walls, cruel laws, hungry beasts, and violent men. It had also given him a family. A man who once wandered the wilderness for an audience now survived for 3 people under one roof. Outside, snow kept falling over Yulong Mountain. Somewhere in that white darkness, the one-eyed bear still lived. The Lotus Society still hid its claws. Detective Lu Qi still carried questions. The Tian family still mourned with anger instead of gratitude. Tan village still had humiliation to swallow. And Yulong village still had winter to survive. But Chu Foam was no longer the starving man who opened his eyes in a stranger's broken house. He had meat and storage weapons, hidden allies beside him, and a wife who trusted him. He had a daughter who believed her father could bring food from any mountain. He had enemies now, but he also had roots. As dawn slowly colored the snow, Chu Foam closed his eyes for a breath. He knew the next crisis would come. He knew this world would not soften just because one family had begun to live. But the man everyone once called useless had already changed the fate of an entire village. And as long as Chu Foam stood at the door, his family would never starve in silence again.